This message is going to be spicy. We're talking about CERN, and this is a channeled message. And I thought that I was channeling just about CERN, but that led me to things like the 2030 agenda and into a lot of topics that I wasn't expecting to cover. So what I did was I connected to the Akashic Records, and if you have never heard of the Akashic Records, it is most of the time accessed for things like your soul's library or your past lives, but you can also access the Akashic Records to find out things like universal truths, to be able to channel or remote view different things going on in the world, different timelines, all sorts of stuff. So lately, I have been going into the Akashic Records and asking questions about things that I'm curious about, and I kind of do this through like a automatic writing, and I'm gonna start sharing those with you guys. So today we are talking about the CERN shutdown. So I channeled this message on July the 2nd, 2026, and I really wanted to figure out, now that CERN shut down, what do light workers need to do to capitalize on this energy? That's what I went in with the intention of. So here is what was coming through. Now that CERN is shut down, there is less lower vibrational synthetic frequencies. What that means is there are less psychic attacks, less entities that are able to manipulate your mind or your consciousness. There are less parasites that are controlling humans. And overall, it makes it easier for us to manifest and creates a lot fewer delays because there are a lot less psychic attacks. Let's talk about why. So CERN opened synthetic stargates, and whoever controls the portals and the stargates controls who gets in and out of Earth. So let's back up for a minute. So there's a difference between a portal and a stargate. A portal takes you within interplanetary. So maybe you go in Mount Shasta, you come out in Antarctica. A stargate is going to be something that's going to take you potentially interdimensional, maybe to another planet. It could also take you like into Agartha, like the inner Earth city, but there is a little bit of a difference between portals and stargates. So for a long time, what has been going on is this war between the dark and the light is actually over stargates. And so there's 12 stargates on planet Earth. Whoever controls those stargates controls what energy gets in and out of planet Earth and what energy controls planet Earth. So that's why, for example, the war in Iran is going on. It's over the 12th Stargate. It's in Iran. It's not over oil or all this stuff that they're saying that it's over, right? It's over control of that last Stargate. But the thing is about Stargates is you cannot access a Stargate or a portal if you were lower vibrational. So there's been these wars going on for 20 years in Iran over this portal, but the problem is everybody that's going there to try to get access to this portal or stargate, they're all lower vibrational, so they couldn't access it even if they were standing on top of it, because a big part of being able to access portals or stargates is to be in the frequency of which that exists. So you have to be able to tap into at least a fifth or sixth dimensional reality or consciousness in order to even be able to conceptualize accessing something like a portal or a stargate. So I asked, why let in lower vibrational entities through these portals and stargates? Because that's something that's been talked about for a long time with CERN, is that they're opening these portals and stargates and they're allowing lower vibrational entities to come in to keep humans in a lower vibrational state. And I really wanted to know why. So this is where it gets interesting. The response was start at the beginning. And so if we're going to start at the beginning, we got to talk about the concept of the fallen angels. So there is the concept that there's these fallen angels, and these fallen angels cut themselves off from source. So I have the belief system that at one point we were all source, and then we got kind of bored of just being source, and so we all started to split off to create our own experiences, and those split offs were oversouls, and then those oversouls would split off into spirits, and they could create whatever reality that they wanted and still create this harmony and peace because they were connected to source. Then there were some who broke off and said, we don't want to be connected to source. We want our own rights and freedom and all of that. Okay. And so what the thing about that is, if you are going to be cut off from source, you have to be able to get energy somewhere. So that energy has to be siphoned, normally by keeping other beings in a lower vibrational state, and that fear energy can be siphoned to continue to allow those who are cut off from source to continue to function, right? So at some point, they realized that they couldn't survive off of being cut off from source, but they could survive off of siphoned energy. This a lot of times is referred to as loosh energy. So if you've heard about loosh energy, that's what I'm referring to. And that's what loosh energy is. It's the energy that exists by being in a state of fear or negative vibration. And that frequency can be siphoned to keep those that have been cut off from source alive, is maybe the best way to put it. So other things came through. In order to do this, they, being the shadow government, needed a planet that they could control, or rather a population that they could control. And by shadow government, I'm not talking about humans, I'm talking about like the Anunnaki and the reptilians that came and originally, started the path of controlling and manipulating the humans, right? So they created the humans to harvest gold for Nibiru, which is the Anunnaki planet that the Anunnaki came from, and the Anunnaki needed gold to basically keep their planet alive, so they came to Earth to harvest it or to mine it, and they didn't want to do the work, so they had the humans essentially created to mine their gold for them. So if you guys want to know more about that and like the Anunnaki and like that timeline, let me know. I can do a separate video. Some of this information is like maybe assumed that you guys are familiar with that information. So if you're not, let me know and I'll drop a separate video on that. So next question I asked, does CERN help siphon energy? The answer was that's one of its functions, yes. It streamlines the process of harvesting loosh energy through things like technology and essentially store that loosh energy to be available on demand and to have a supply of it. And I said, like Monsters, Inc. And the response was, that's CERN hiding in plain sight, yes. And that's the thing about a lot of this is, they have to tell us what's going on, so there's a lot of hidden in plain sight things that go on. Next thing I asked, is CERN controlled by the negative god, Ball? And there is a lot of people that believe that the reptilians and the shadow government and all these people, they Epstein Island and all that is associated with the worship and the sacrifice to this negative entity called Ball that or Baal that resonated or began during the time of the Babylonians, where child sacrifice was a thing, and that is still embedded in these people that are cut off from source, and they use things like child sacrifice to be able to get things like this loosh energy, right? So I asked if CERN was controlled by that dark entity, and the answer was sort of. It's run by a person who's possessed by a fractal of him. So when we're talking about these oversouls splitting off into spirits, it's basically saying there is this negative entity and a fractal of him has essentially done what we would call a walk-in or a possession of that body, right? So that body is now essentially being controlled by this negative entity because of either some sort of conscious or unconscious contract that was allowed for that entity to kind of take the lead of that body. So I said, this is an attachment or a walk-in? And the answer was a little of both. It's an entity that's attached, but it can run the show like a walk-in can. And a walk-in is when a entity or a higher self comes in and kind of takes over the body, either in a way where you're able to remember things like past lives and why you came here, or in a negative vibrational way, right? So walk-ins can be negative or positive depending on what is walking in, right? Like I've definitely worked with people that have contracts to have walk-ins with their higher self at one point to be able to really expedite their ascension process when they're ready for that, right? So I said, is this what people today would define as a possession? And the answer was similar, yes. And I asked if they were shut down by the GFL, which is the Galactic Federation. And the answer was yes. Like the GFL was maybe the people that started the shutdown order, that like what they're doing, one is it's violating free will, right? So they're doing a lot of things that are violating free will. And they're also doing a lot of things that could literally cause the planet to self-destruct. And the thing about our planet is if our planet self-destructs, it messes up the entire solar system in which we exist in. So if the humans are doing things to disrupt the entire solar system, things like the Galactic Federation will get involved and say, hey, no, you know? And they do kind of have the power and abilities to enforce those sorts of things, you know? So I said, okay, so they did shut down because of intervention, but what comes next? And the answer was Project Looking Glass. And my understanding of Project Looking Glass is it's this project to see the future. And the answer was yes. They're trying to see if they can alter timelines in the past or present to make sure that the 2030 agenda doesn't fail. And I asked, is the 2030 agenda on track to fail now? And the answer was yes. They know they can't stop the solar flashes. That's why it's hot and everyone's waking up. And I said, okay, the heat is because of the solar flashes. I'm in North Carolina. We have had the hottest summer we have ever had by I'm talking 20 degrees higher than average. My boyfriend does HVAC, done HVAC for like 10 years, never seen a summer like this. I said, okay, back to the 2030 agenda. What can we do to continue to dismantle it? And the answer was to share this. The 3D to 5D shift is the only thing strong enough to stop the 2030 agenda. Awakened people can't be controlled even by an AI government, and the Looking Glass shows by 2030, 50% of the people will be awake in some fashion and they wouldn't fall into the chip system. So let's pause. 2030 agenda, if you've never heard of it, is the reason that there's so much kind of waking up and pushback and stuff like that now. Is the 2030 agenda would be to have governments or people controlled by an AI government that would actually just be run by the same dark forces that run everything now, but it would involve things like a chip system, and it's just very not what we want, right? Again, if y'all don't know about that and you want to know more, I can do a separate video. So I said, can you share the 2030 agenda? Yes, you will own nothing and be happy. The elites, Illuminati, Rockefellers, and Rothschilds have been planning this for decades. They wanted to create a federal banking system that they own and control, be able to get in control of the media and get in control of the medical systems. And then they wanted to introduce a chip system that does it all. And this chip system would be like, no more losing your debit card, no more forgetting your social, no more needing your medical ID card. It's all in the chip that's already in you. And so they would present it like it was something that's helping us, right? And next thing I asked is, was CERN speeding up time? Yes, since the lockdown in 2020. I said, why? To keep us humans as distracted as possible by being busy. Then I asked, does the Epstein files also support the 2030 agenda? Because every government in some form or fashion was implicated in the Epstein files. And I asked, so now that they hope that the chip and AI government will be more accepted as a bias-proof government, but the elites would run it in the background the same way they do now. And the answer was like, yes, that's all correct. Like, that's what's going on behind the scenes. I was just trying to find a good way to verbalize it for you guys. Then I said, how can we stop this? Wake up, help others wake up, build new Earth communities with the resources to be self-sustainable in your own community. So that's where you start. If you're in the process of waking up, keep waking up. If you are very well awake and you know you need to step into the process of helping waking up other people and you don't know where to start, I have a quantum leap guide, and I also have a 12-week roadmap. I have a 30-day quantum leap guide that will teach you how to quantum leap into a new timeline and a new identity. I have a 12-week roadmap that gives you a week-by-week guide of what to do if you're starting your own spiritual business. That is something that would, I say, allow you to skip your flounder season, which we all want to do. And I also have a ton of other resources just linked below on my website for spiritual entrepreneurs, business owners, people going through awakenings. So check those out. And if you have not already saved your spot for Hilton Head, would love to meet you in September in Hilton Head. That will also be linked in the show notes. I will see you guys next episode.